right, welcome to Maniac Chronicles, Volume 16. This is the first video version of the Maniac Chronicles. I've written 15 pieces in the past year on my various experiences in sports betting, poker, etc. And I left one of my buddies a bunch of voicemails last week, voice texts on Telegram, and he was listening to them. I think he was with Mike Craig, and they both agreed. They said, hey, you should start some type of talk show or podcast or something like that. And I've had a lot of stuff that I wanted to write about this football season. I just haven't had the time. I've written a couple of blogs, but I've been taking a lot of notes of a lot of things that I wanted to get out there that I think are interesting topics. And I don't know if I'm going to do this all the time, if I'm going to do this once every couple of months, maybe when I have time. Right now, I have some time because the college football season just wound down. That's mainly where I am at these days as far as origination. So today's kind of a slow day, so I figured this would be a good day to start this. Just recording on an iPhone, going to shoot from the hip. I have some browsers pulled up with some information that I'll talk about and some stuff that I'll refer to. If anything gets screwed up, it gets screwed up. I'm just going to keep moving on. It's just me and an iPhone in my office. So if you hear anyone trouncing up and down the halls or talking, it's because I have an office space in a pretty busy building. But the three topics I'm going to cover today are going to be, number one, I'm going to cover Fliff, the social sports book that a lot of people are playing now, how I ran up 37,000 on there or something like that, which is a considerable amount for a site that only takes $500 bets. I'm going to go into the gift cards that I won on there, how to convert the money and how I got that much money on and whether I think it's a good site to play. The second topic I'm going to cover today is going to be a prop angle that I took to win probably hundreds of units on one player. One angle, it was just one over under, very simple data that I looked at, and we just went full attack mode on it. And then I'm going to do a Q&A at the end, and that's it. So we'll start here. We're going to start off with Fliff. So everybody was talking about Fliff. Early September, one of my buddies, he just kept saying, why aren't you on Fliff? Like, you got to get on Fliff. These lines are so good, this and that, and the other thing. And it just kept going in one ear and out the other because early September, I am just so busy getting into college football, originating every day. The props are coming out as early as Sunday night sometimes, and I just don't have the time. I'm dealing with a lot of people, a lot of partners. I have a 5-year-old son. Got to get him to school, get him after school. My wife has a career, so it was just another thing that I didn't want to take on. I had a lot of meetings with people that I had to have follow-up meetings after going to Bet Bash this past summer, and there was just so much on my plate. It just kept going in one ear and out the other until there was a specific bet that I'm going to talk about in the second segment here. When he just kept telling me this line has been available all week, like, you got to get on here. And then finally I said, okay, like, I wanted to get so much more on this, and if that line's moving that slow and all the lines are moving that slow, then it's probably a good idea to get some money on here and see how it goes. Now, Fliff, it's a social sports book. It's not regulated. It's one of these Prize Picks type apps where they skirt the law somehow by promoting this, whatever you're betting on, as prizes that you can redeem and not real money, even though you're betting real money. So it's kind of crazy this day and age that this stuff exists, but there is a loophole, I guess, in every industry for anything. So anyhow, needed to get on Fliff. So what do? My buddy, he's very familiar with it. He told me what to do. The first piece of advice he gave me was, use Apple Pay. You use Apple Pay, you can get more money on here faster. and maybe it's less likely that your bank card's going to get declined. I don't really remember the whole thing, but he just advised me to use Apple Pay. Smart guy, knows what he's doing. He knows a lot of people that were on Fliff, and this seemed to be the best way to deposit. So I just started depositing, and the most they will take is $100 deposit. Now, so I just kept jamming $100 deposits in, and then eventually I think my credit card got turned off. So I had to call them, get that fixed. Now, this is another thing that's a pain in the ass. This is something, he explained all this to me before I even get on there, and this is just something that I didn't want to really get into. Like, time is so valuable, especially during the football season. With all the stuff that I described, what I'm doing day to day, even just that, picking up the phone to call your bank, then you got to get that turned back on. You're doing $100 deposits. Is it worth it, or is it not worth it? So got the card turned back on. Eventually, they upped my deposit limit to like $200 or $300. So after you jam in a bunch of $100 deposits, they will up your deposit limit. I can't remember what it was. It was like $200 or $300. So I jammed a bunch of the 200s and 300s down their throat. And eventually, I got to $500. I jammed a bunch of $500 deposit limits down. Now, I don't know how this looks to somebody on the other side, but it's got to be one or two ways. Either this guy's like a pro and he's coming in here, or this guy's a maniac. And I think with this type of site at this point in time, I think if somebody was looking at this and actually saw this, maybe nobody did, they would think this guy's fucking crazy. So I don't know. Now I have like 25K on here, something like that. And I just got right to work. Now, this site has a lot of different markets on here that some sites don't have, or they have a lot of the markets that you would have on like a sportsbook like DraftKings. They have live props, longs, all kinds of alts, all kinds of crazy stuff. The stuff that is very easy to beat if you put a little bit of time and effort into it. So I said, why not? Let's give it a shot. So I was basically all in a lot from September all the way up until they cut me off, which might have been late November, early December. I can't even remember when it was. But at the end of the day, I got them for, I think, like 37,000, which is like 70 units. Your max bet is 500. So do the math. It's 70 plus units I got them for. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get the longevity there to do that? Now, and again, I don't know. It could be the same thing I was just talking about with the deposits. It could be the same way. I'm literally all in every day on all kinds of stuff, just jamming bet after bet down their throat. All in, all in, all in. Most days, not every day. So yeah, I don't know if they thought I was a fish. I talked to somebody yesterday that said, maybe you shouldn't max bet. Maybe you should bet less than max bet. Maybe when you withdraw, you shouldn't be withdrawing max withdrawals. That's another thing I did not do. I did not withdraw until I got cut off. So I just basically went full steam, jammed it down their throat, won the money, and now I'm in the process of cashing out. Now, basically, in order to get money on here, you deposit, and then you convert. You get these things called Fliff coins. You get like 1 million Fliff coins, and then you can basically hit a little toggle on the right-hand corner of the app, and it'll turn your Fliff coins into Fliff cash, which is redeemable as a prize, which is, I think, how they skirt around the sports betting laws and breaking laws that way, because they're whatever, like a prize site or something like that. So anyhow, if you're going to play on there, make sure you have the button checked so everything is green. That means you're playing for Fliff cash. So anyhow, after you get all your deposits in, they have these little purple diamond things or whatever they are. You accrue them. They're basically like frequent player points, and you can only redeem them, I think, one time. So my buddy explained to me how to do it. I redeemed them all. I got $500 in Chipotle gift cards. I got, what else did I get? 150 Dunkin' Donuts, 500 Starbucks. I got $150 in DoorDash. So yeah, that part of it was pretty good. Like extra freebies for nothing. But I guess that's like, there's probably a lot of degenerates out there that love that stuff. They just think they're getting value from that stuff, and they're probably getting their clocks clean. But anyhow, that was nice. But now comes to the part where you withdraw. So early stages, they ship me 5K. They ship me another 5K pretty quickly, 3 days, 5 days. I'm like, all right, this isn't bad. But as time's gone on, the third withdrawal, I think, took 10 days. Now we're on the fourth withdrawal, and we're sitting at about getting close to 20 days. I think in this Tuesday will be 3 weeks exactly. So some people that would know if they have money or not tell me they believe they have a lot of money, and I believe them. I just believe that the withdrawals are so slow right now because the big downfall at Fliff, in my opinion, was when Unabated put them on their odds screen. This is nothing against Unabated, but when Unabated announced that they had Fliff on their odds screen, I know how slow the lines move on there. I said to myself, and I said to my buddy, I said, this is going to be either the death of Fliff or something's going to happen because of this. And not too long after that, they had a mass sweep with bannings, because I'm sure there were a lot of sharp bettors or top-down bettors that just jumped on here, took advantage, made a lot of money, or made some money, and now they got banned. There was a big sweep of bannings a few weeks ago, and now everybody's trying to get their money off at the same time. Which brings me to another point. Some people seem to believe that you shouldn't play on sites like this because it's a risk, and I think that is like the stupidest fucking thing ever. If you can't afford the loss, then maybe then go try and beat Pinnacle. Go try and beat a top sports book like that. Look at your alternatives. Like, you should always be playing at the weakest places, especially if you're trying to build a bankroll. And if you do have some type of bankroll, like playing at a place like this and taking the risk that you're going to get stiffed is certainly something that you should do, because, like I said, I mean, I won 70 plus units, and it was all origination, or mostly origination. So yeah, you should be taking shots on sites like this. And if you don't get paid, then you don't get paid. I don't think that they're gonna go under. I think if they were going to go under, somebody would probably just buy them, because it's a nice platform. They have a lot of users. And as whatever the laws state now in all these states they're in, they can operate. So with Fliff, another thing, somebody told me they had like a 300 or a 600 million valuation. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do think that you should if you can afford it, take a shot on here. If it takes you a little while to get paid, so be it. And if you really need the money, maybe you don't. But it's the same thing when I was playing poker. I used to play on the Merge network, and I started on Poker Stars. I started on Full Tilt. I was a low limit grinder. Then I was like a mid stakes to almost high stakes grinder for what was running at the time. And I found the Merge network, which is like sportsbook.ag. They had like 15 skins. Now, I would go there and play because I knew that all the best professionals were going to be mostly playing on the main two sites. So anytime you can find a site like this that's kind of on the corner of the internet, not that Fliff is pretty big. A lot of people play on there, but I compare it to like when I played on the Merge network, I basically had the site to myself a lot of the time, not all the time, but it's just easier to make money on there. And I believe it's the same thing with Fliff. If you want to make a quick whatever, go for it. As far as like how to do it, that's how I did it. I just jammed a bunch of money on, and then I just maybe looked like a complete maniac, and maybe they thought I was a maniac. Maybe they didn't look at me. I have no idea, but that's how I did it. And I'm in the process of cashing out, and I'll keep you up to date on how that goes for the future, which brings me to the next topic. Need to get a drink of water here. Topic number 2. Okay. winning over 100 units, probably hundreds of units, however you want to calculate it, on one player, one angle. Okay. So when I bet props, or basically bet anything, but mostly props of what I'm originating, that's what I'm most comfortable putting money on. I'll follow other guys' stuff and put a lot of money on it if they have a track record. But with the props, I'm very confident in my own origination. I've been doing this now since 2015 or 2016 at a very high scale, very, very high scale of bets weekly. I cap them all by hand, use my brain, just looking at the pieces of data that I feel are relevant, and I'm very confident in betting my stuff. And if I can find outliers, I'll bet even more, and I'll bet as much as I can now. When I first started, I couldn't do that. I didn't have the network to do that. I probably didn't have the bankroll to do that. I mean, I would in some senses, but there's only so many places you can bet when you first start, when you have so much money allocated to different places. So now it's a little different. If I really need to get a lot of money down on a play from like just networking, etc., I probably can get a lot more down now than I ever could, obviously, because I've been doing this for a long time. I have a pretty good reputation, and people know that I win. And if I send out some orders, they're gonna place them down. And if I tell them we really need to get this, then usually they'll go the extra mile to get the stuff for me. So anyways, this was week 1, the week after week 0, college football. Week 0, we had a good week. And then all of a sudden, week 1, these props are coming flying out on Sunday night, Monday. They're just trickling out. And all of a sudden, this one prop came up. And I looked up, and it was a rushing prop. It was Dylan Raiola, the quarterback for Nebraska. Shout out to my buddy Scott, big Nebraska guy. But anyhow, so Raiola comes up onto the board, and I see his rushing yards listed, and they opened his rushing yards at 25.5 yards. Now, I have no data on Dylan Raiola. He's never played college football. All I know is he's the biggest recruit in the country. Great passer. I figured, I just see the 25.5. Figure, hey, this guy can probably run. So just took my pen here, wrote his name down, put his yards, said I'll come back to this later. Moved on to the next guy. Just going through, and then all of a sudden, one of my partners texts me, and he says, hey, did you see Dylan Raiola, 25.5? I said, yeah, I saw it. I don't know what to do with it yet. And he said, I don't think this guy runs. He's like, I don't know if he runs, but I don't think he runs. Just look into it a little bit. And this was my main partner. And he does a lot of kiosk stuff too, but he does a lot of handicapping. He cross-checks a lot of my work, comes up with some crafty ideas, tells me what plays of mine he thinks sucks, and I'll do the same with him. And usually when we're on a match, we'll try and go extra hard on that stuff. So I look in, I'm like, all right, so what do? I type Dylan Raiola high school stats. Just typed it into Google, very simple. Now, pops up, senior year of high school, okay? He had negative 56 rushing yards. I'm like, okay. Junior year of high school, negative 82 rushing yards. Okay, so this is something good. I looked at the game logs. Senior year, he was like 70% of the time he goes under to negative rushing yards. Positive rushing yards 3 times. Junior year, pretty similar. I think he was 63% his junior year going to the under. So I see that, and now I know this guy is going to Nebraska. They're going to protect him. He's probably, if you can't run in high school, and maybe he wasn't trying to run in high school, but those numbers just jumped off the page for me. And I just said to myself, all right, this is an auto under. Listed him at, this line might be, I mean, maybe he should be listed at negative yards, not even 0.5 rushing yards. I mean, this guy could be the number one pick in the draft in 2 years, but the first thing I thought of was Drew Bledsoe. This guy's like Drew Bledsoe. He must be a statue. I know his father has NFL pedigree. I think he was like an all-pro lineman for the Lions, and I think he had an uncle that played in the NFL as well. But I just knew this line was wrong. And I saw those stats, and I said, all right, we got to hit this. So we hit it at 25.5. It moved to 12.5. Hit it again. And then, let me see here. So they lowered it. I don't know where it closed. I can't remember, but I know it dropped to like 12.5. We hammered it, and fortunately, we had a casino where we could bet this at a kiosk, we could have bet this 500 times. Maybe we did bet it 500 times, but at this particular casino, you could bet any rushing props, and they wouldn't move the line, and they wouldn't detect it. If you bet a quarterback's passing yards, they would eventually move the line. But for some reason, rushing props were broken at this casino. And even at the counter, you could go up to the counter 60 times in a day, bet the same thing. And as long as the employees really didn't care, when you're tipping them, they would just put the bets through. And the guy for some reason, whoever was in the trading room, they just kept putting these out. They just kept printing them, and they just printed them all week. So we just kept hitting it. And that's what we had. So the first game, he finishes -6 yards, 1 carry. So that's good. We're hoping he gets listed again the next week. So week 2, and the first game was against UTEP, 1 carry for -6 yards. So that's already lining up with the beliefs that if you can't run in high school, how are you going to run in college against faster athletes? I know you're going to have better athletes around you on offense, but week 2 comes around. They play Colorado, not exactly the best defense going into this season. So week 2 against Colorado, he opens at, I think I already said this, 11.5. We bet him down to 7.5, 166. We were still betting at -166. That's another thing, like with originating is someone might know this is a good play, but they might say, hey, like, I'm not going to bet this at 166. But we just continued betting it over and over, just like we did the first week at 166. So eventually he got removed from the board, and I think he got copied. I don't remember if it was I think it was this week. He made it to Prop Builder, and I said, I'm going to see if this survives till game day, and everybody, all these per head books, copy it, and then we can just hit this a zillion times. But somebody else was onto this as well, and he literally got wiped out in less than an hour. So whatever, didn't touch that, didn't get a piece of the prop builder stuff. But so he's at 11.5. We bet him down to 7.5, 166. He gets removed. I actually had a call with a guy who is pretty big in the content space in college football, gambles a lot. And, his question to me was, why would they set this line like this? Like, do they think this and that versus specific team? And I'm like, no, I mean, the answer is, like, they have so many lines to set that they just don't know. That's the truth. They just don't know. And it's the same thing, like, with all due respect to lines makers, like, when you're trying to set a board of props and you have to set pretty much a prop for every player and every derivative there is out there, then you're going to make mistakes and you're not going to know everything. And this is almost like a scenario where with Matt Metcalf, when he set, I think it was Metcalf that set that WNBA All-Star game like 100 points off where it should have been because of what was happening in the game. Like, sometimes you just throw a number out there, you don't know. You can't get everything right all the time. Big deal. You just move on. So anyhow, the line, we liked it all the way down to there. Game finishes. He had 3 carries for 7 yards. Now, we almost lost this one. He had 12 yards or 11 yards going into the fourth quarter, and he was pretty much a lock to win it. They didn't need to run. It was a blowout, and he went to hand off. He turned the wrong way. He ate a sack, finishes 3 for 7. We sweep all the bets 2 weeks in a row. And it was just one of these scenarios where you just got to keep betting it. If you believe your numbers are right, you believe in what's going on. And I'm willing to take that risk at this point. Like, I'm not going to bet my entire bankroll on it, but I'm going to do my best to bet a lot on a scenario like this. And these type of scenarios do happen a lot. I mean, they can happen in college football. Something like this, I mean, it just depends on how long it hangs around. But like even in the NFL with quarterbacks, every year, these quarterbacks come into the NFL, week 1, week 2, week 3. The lines aren't the most efficient because they're kind of guessing what they're going to do, and you got to kind of gauge it off what happened in college, how they did. And then you have all the sack yards in college. The sack yards count in college against the rushing. They don't count in the NFL. I actually like that the sack yards count in college. It just adds another layer of just something else to factor in. So anyhow, week 3, he wasn't listed. He finished with 13 yards against Northern Iowa, which is, I think, like a FCS program. So he didn't get listed that week. But the good thing about that game was he had 2 carries for 13 yards. So we're like, this is great. We're going to get him again next week. He had a positive game. If he went like negative 25, we weren't going to get him the next week. But he had a nice 13-yard game. And then the next week came around. They played Illinois. Opens up 8.5. We pounded it. Somebody bet it up to 9.5, or one of the lines guys made a mistake and just moved it the wrong way. And we just kept going on it over and over and over and over and over. And what happens here is that week, I gave away, I think, 10 $500 free roll bets this year I set a weight loss goal that I didn't hit, lost it, honored it. I've given away 8 props this year, went 7-1. And this week this particular week, I gave away somebody I think I gave them under whatever rushing yards I got. And that obviously won. And this game, he finishes with 7 carries for negative 52 yards. Now, this was the game we were the most confident in. They're playing against Illinois, probably the most physical team they'd seen all year. A team that knows that he's not the most mobile of guys now. Down the line, he may become mobile. He's athletic, but I think with a guy like him, when he sees something coming, tries to turn, get out of it. When you have speed of guys maybe that are on Illinois with, somebody that can actually scheme against you and match you physically, you just can't get away. So 7 for negative 52 in that game. And the problem here was he went so low that are we going to see him the next week against Purdue? And like, how are they going to get set a number now? You got 2 negative games, 2 medium games. I mean, you still should be able to set a number, but we didn't get anything in that Purdue game. And the hopes were that the next 2 weeks against Rutgers and Indiana after that he was going to pop some runs, finish positive, and then we could get him against Ohio State, where we figured he was going to get absolutely fucking crushed. Now, they didn't list him the Purdue game, the Rutgers game, or the Indiana game. The Ohio State game, the game where we would have went to complete town on, he actually finished with 31 yards rushing. So it's probably, in hindsight, it's good. I mean, we would have went pretty hard on that game, but what happened was they were down. I think Ohio State was playing like some deep cover or whatever, and he just had room to go. And I think he ripped off one big long run, and that would have killed us. But in any event, we had 3 games, and we did pretty well there. We made a shitload of units, and it basically, it set us up to be in a great position and feel good early in the season when, there's a lot of unknown happening, and can just feel more comfortable taking shots on different stuff when there's not a lot of data available. And I've talked about this before. I talked about this when I was on the Risk Takers podcast a couple of years ago. Or last year. It's some people, you obviously want as much data as you can have. I mean, the more data, the more holes you can pick through, and the more stuff you can do with it. But sometimes less data is better, because you can come up with situations like this where, I guess there's the high school data there, but how deep are they going to look into it? And it's the same thing with early season betting on props. I mean, traditionally, early season props, it's a lot harder in some senses, because you got to try and figure out what you think's going to happen, and sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you get crushed. There's a lot of variance, but when it goes your way, it can be very lucrative. I don't think this year was tremendous, but the fact that we had this one play kind of trumped any of the mistakes we made those first 3 to 4 weeks. Anyhow, another after I found these high school stats, and another bet that I got down was a book that I have offered 199.5 rushing yards for the season on Raiola. Obviously hammered that. Also got under 5.5 rush TDs, minus 180. Obviously hammered that. So yeah, that's pretty much how that went. And there's situations that come up like this from time to time. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. You might get one of these every couple of years. This is kind of like a Mayweather-McGregor type deal, or, the Tyson fight that just passed, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I didn't put as much on that as I probably should have, but had a decent amount on it. But these are the type of things that, if you not even think, that you have just something that's off the wall, you can hammer it. Now, maybe these bets were, I don't know, like 70% at the worst. That's kind of where I would have put them at. We're going to win 70% at the worst. For me, I don't mind taking large positions on stuff like this and just suffering the consequences if it goes the wrong way. You can find sometimes weather props when it's raining hard or it's really windy, where you can gain certain advantages in certain ways. And, I guess it's similar with like NBA with lineup switches and all that, but this is just what I'm most comfortable with doing is football props. And if I can find it and get to it and just go to town, then yep, I just don't mind, even if it loses, having that there. It's the same with the Super Bowl. Like the Super Bowl every year, you can come up with edges that are similar to this, and you can just go pretty heavy on them, and you can, maybe have 40, 50, 60 bets, or in the case of somebody like Rufus having hundreds of bets on, Super Bowl. So obviously you'd like to get more bets down across the board, lower the variance, and, and then just scrape the winnings in. But again, like just looking to make money and put big money down in certain spots, and this was one of them. So we eventually got shut down. They figured out that rushing thing. They didn't pin it on us or nothing, but that got taken away. Now the lines move. Actually, they did remove the player props from these kiosks. This is actually the second or third time this has happened, where just from betting player props at certain properties and cleaning their clocks pretty hard, they've removed them from the premises due to the action that we've given them. And another thing, like, we're actually fortunate, like where we're located, that they actually do have college player props, because they're not available in every state. And that just so happens to be what I specialize in and what one of my partners specializes in. Used to do a lot more NFL, but the workload just became too much. and there's just so much more stuff getting offered that I just don't have the energy to do the NFL as well. So what I'll do with the NFL now is I just wait till the playoffs, or I wait, till the Super Bowl, and then jump in. There's a lot of data, and I have the time to do it because college is kind of winding down, and that's kind of where I'll leave that there. So anytime you can find these types of statistical anomalies that you feel are in your favor, I would suggest going hard, and it's very good for bankroll growth. You can accelerate your bankroll so fast if you can find a mistake like this. And they happen in every sport. You just need to find it and need to be able to get the money down. Now, I'm actually going to look at this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at the end of the year, even versus like 0.5 yards, he actually went under 7 times and went over 6 times. So was it, in hindsight, like, you can always look at things in hindsight, and they're close to a coin flip here, just versus a half a yard. But again, we're talking 26.5 yards, 12.5 yards, 9.5 yards, 8.5 yards. We got it when it was good, and it was good then. It worked. We were lucky we didn't get the Ohio State game, and that's it. Move on, keep going. So yeah, now I'm going to get to the final one here. This is going to be the Q&A. There's only a few questions here, so I should be able to wrap this up pretty easily. But again, like, if you like the video content on this versus the written content, please like and retweet. I'll do more of these. If people like it, and I get a lot of DMs saying they love the Maniac Chronicles content, and I don't know, I figured I'd try a video version. And if you do want to check out any of those Maniac Chronicles, just look in my Twitter profile. Click on the highlights tab. There's 15 or 16 of them, 15 of them in there. And it's just a lot of my experiences in the sports betting world, in the poker world, and I might take those and convert them to Twitter articles, because they have like an articles section now for Twitter Premium. So I'm probably going to convert them and repost them all at some point. I may even do, if there's anything like really interesting in there, I may go in and do some video versions of them. But as far as like expanding this to like YouTube, Spotify, any of that stuff, I don't really have any plans to do that. I'm just going to do this one, shoot from the hip, and if people like it, I'll do more. I'm not looking to make money doing this. A lot of it's just to, I like to talk about this stuff, kind of documents, my journey, and it's going to kind of keep things somewhat organized. If I decide to write a book or something like that, I can have a lot of this stuff that's kind of fresh and just easy to refer to if I'm going to put it into like a written content form or something like that. So Q&A should be pretty simple here. Wasn't a lot of questions, but I'll just start here. Let's see. All right. And some of this I'm just not going to answer straightforward because I just can't do it. But like, how do you go about pricing longest rush, reception, completion props? Again, like, I do this stuff, like, I will just pull up all the data that I feel is relevant. And the way I do it is, it's almost process of elimination. I'm trying to find their mistake. I'm not trying to price it myself. I'm just trying to look at as much data as I can, very simply, in a quick amount of time, and just find something and say, that's not even fucking close to where it should be. Or that's not close to where it should be. Sometimes you're going to come up with something like the Raiola thing that I just spoke about, where you're like, all right, we have to go to war with this for as long as we can. And other times it's just, you just make a bet off of how you priced something, or how you think they priced something wrong. And again, like my buddy Beagle's bets, very good, maybe the best NBA prop capper out there. He says, one line he said, which I totally agree with, he's not afraid to make a bad bet. And I'm the same way. I'm not afraid to make a bad bet. I'll fire and get to the next bet. And by the time somebody's trying to figure out whether that bet's good or not, I probably have 10 more bets in my pocket. So, it's more common sense for me. I don't have any coding skills. I don't have any exceptional math skills. I have none of that. But one thing I do know how to do, and I know how to do it better than most people, is win. And that's all you need to know how to do is win. It's not that difficult. Could I tell you who's going to win the Lakers Celtics tonight? I have no fucking idea. Even college football, which I watch probably more than most people, seen more games than most people. I know every coordinator in the country. I know the depth charts pretty well. I can't even tell you, spreads, totals. Like, yeah, I can have a lean here and there where I think this is going to happen or I think that's going to happen. But again, it's just it's easier to do it with prop bets. It just is, because there's only so much. There's just a little data. There's a lot more that goes into the other stuff, and you can just poke holes in stuff like that, like the Raiola play. Now, I'm not looking to get the Raiola play every play, but if I can get stuff that's close to that, 2/3 of that, then you just cast that out, wide net, wide scale, and just hope you bring back 60+% in props. And if you're not, then you got to reanalyze what you're doing and maybe find out if you're making a mistake doing this stuff. So I just go at it very simply. Let's see here. Do you bet a lot of middles or reverse middles? Any tips on finding price in them? I don't bet middles. I don't bet reverse middles. I don't price middles. It's just something that I don't do. Could care less. Other people do. I don't. The only middles that I'll really do, and it's if I have like an under 5.5 reception and I see like an over 4.5 reception, once in a while I'll middle something like that if the prices are right or something like that. But middles aren't something I'm looking for. I'm just, and maybe guys that are betting sides and totals, they would do that. I'd say look at one of Spanky's podcasts. He probably has talked about middles a lot or gotten into it a little bit, but it's just not something that I'm going to do. It's the same thing with like same game parlays. People always ask me, hey, how about same game parlays? Yeah, we do some of them. We do some alts, some, ladder alts, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm so busy with just straight prop bets that I can't put any more time into middles, same game parlays, any of that crap. I just want to keep my eyes focused on the one prize, which is the one thing I'm good at, which is just breaking down simple data and just coming up with a sheet of props every week and then just letting the results fall where they may. If I start getting into other things, that's when things get a little bit tricky for me. And it actually happened earlier this year. I wrote a blog about it, about whether my model was broken or was it variance or whatever. But the bottom line was I was just taking on too much stuff. Probably wasn't thinking as clearly as I should have. And you consider it, I was just having sort of a mental breakdown. I'm sitting here in the office on Saturdays and, just getting massive headaches. And it was from taking on too much. And it's the same thing. If I start to dip my toes in other markets, then that's when I usually run into problems. And then it interferes with what I'm doing and I get my eyes off the prize, which is player props. So, that's that. Another question we got here was somebody asked me, let me see if I can find this. Get back to that one in a second. Always interested in the analysis that professionals use prior to placing bets. Do you make your own numbers? If so, what's your process? If not, how do you attack the markets? Kind of already went through this. I could come up with a price for my props, but I kind of reverse engineer it. I kind of want to take their sheet. I want to see what their sheet says, what whatever the book's lines are, and then I almost want to reverse engineer it and just find out where they made a mistake. So I'm not trying to come up with an exact line and then look at their lines. I'm trying to look at their lines and then find a mistake in their lines. And maybe I go through 12 players or 12 props before I find one that I like. That's just the process. And it can be grueling. It's long. It's lengthy. Some people think I'm fucking crazy for doing it that way. But again, it works. And it works for me. And I have shortcuts to get to the correct, what I feel are the correct answers on overs and unders, just from doing this for so long. I know what to look for the most part, to try and break some down. I'm going to make some mistakes, but again, if what I'm doing is clearing 60%, then I'm doing the right thing. And like another thing, like the analysis that I do, like I don't use an odd screen. People think I'm fucking crazy for not using an odd screen either. I don't need an odd screen. All I need to do is see the sheet of props, cap them, and then just send orders out. And if I send it to people and to a certain number, they'll just fill it to the number I have, or the same, whoever I send that stuff to, or whatever I'm going to bet. Like, I don't care what the markets are doing. Some cases I do if I see something go crazy, like I did with the Stockton prop the other night. Like I stopped betting it. But for the most part, I'm aware of what's happening in the markets just by seeing how these lines are moving at the books I'm betting at. But yeah, I don't use an odd screen. Don't make my own numbers. Could, but again, I'm just trying to find a mistake in their number. And how do I attack the markets? I mean, for the most part, if I think something's going to be a public play, maybe we'll let it sit around till later in the week because we think we're going to get a good number or a better number. Other stuff, just everybody just goes at the same time. Here you go. Send out a mass order and stuff gets returned, and that's that. Let me see what else here. There was another thing. Somebody asked a question. I don't know why I can't find it, but I remember it. It was about networking and how do you pick up more books and how do you pick up more outs. I'll take a sip of water here and then I'll get to this question. Okay, so how do you get more outs? It's very simple. So you start, let's just say you're starting from scratch now. You have legal outs, okay? And if you're not in a legal state, you have offshore outs. So you just exhaust all that stuff first. So your legal outs are gone, your offshore outs are gone. Now you have a bankroll brewing. Maybe you already had a bankroll brewing. I don't know. But this is at least how it worked for me. Offshore I started with. Got limited everywhere. Then you start asking around to maybe your buddies from high school, guys that you know. I don't know. It could be a barber. Anybody you interact with it. Or do you go to bars? Do you know people that go to bars? Ask around. You find bookies. Then you have friends. You tell them you're winning. Your friends then reach their tentacles out there and they find bookies. And then before you know it, maybe you have 5 bookies. Maybe you have 10 bookies. But eventually that well's going to run dry. So you've gone through all your offshores. You've gone through all your legals. You've gone through all the local bookies. And eventually at some point that well is going to run dry. It can't last forever. So what I started doing after that was I started listening to these podcasts, and I tell people this all the time, like just the three main podcasts that I've listened to most of the episodes. I've listened to every Be Better Betters, everyone. I've listened to most of the Circles Off. and the Bet the Process. I've listened to a good amount of those. During COVID, I think I listened to probably 40 of those straight, just driving around. You got nothing going on. There's no gambling. I wasn't playing a lot of poker then. So that's where I would look to network with people. If I thought I heard somebody smart on one of these podcasts that could win, who maybe had values that aligned to mine, or whatever, I would reach out, see how I could help them. Maybe they could help me. And that's how I started networking out like that. And then, maybe some of those guys work out. Maybe some of those guys don't. Some people work alone. Some people have large reaches out there. Not everyone's going to work out, but the next step, I think, was, I think Bet the Process had a meetup at Sloan a couple of years ago. And, I was a fan of their podcast. And, Rufus always says, hey, if you want a partner, don't DM me, talk to Tom. And I knew Tom was going to be down there. And I went down, met those guys. I went down and talked to Tom. I met maybe another partner, somebody random I met down there that was able to help me in some way. And then you go to Bet Bash. I met a guy at Bet Bash who I'd indirectly been working with for 5 years or so. Still do business with him to this day. But now, we knew who each other were, but we wouldn't have met if we didn't go to Bet Bash. Bet Bash is by far the best place you can go for networking. Meet people that have values that are aligned to yours. You can, just talk to people, gauge what they can do for you, what you can do for them. And especially this year, I think I met 3 guys that have we've helped each other a lot this year, a real lot. So I would say Bet Bash is second to none. Just try and weed out the bad people from the good people. And once you've done this for a long time, then you can kind of gauge who's frauds and who's real. And that's pretty much that. But the podcasts, if you're not going to travel to Vegas, like I said, you listen to all these podcasts, all you have to do is just, if you don't shoot your shot, then, you can't make the shot, right? So, I would just DM people, cold DM them. Hey, I do this. Do you want to chat? Sure. Hop on DMs. It doesn't always work out. It's the same thing, since I went on Circles Off a couple of years ago, I've ramped up my social media. I've done a lot of writing in the past year, and, it says, yeah, my DMs are open for partnerships. And, I've gotten hundreds of DMs where I've, either answered questions that I could answer for people, or people want to partner up, and it doesn't always work. Maybe 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work, or, 8 times out of 10, it's not going to work for some reason or another. Maybe, it could be for any reason, but you make 1 or 2 matches out of 10, that's good. It's, I think that's a good way to find people. Listen to these podcasts, find people that are smart or you think are smart. And you could tell by listening to them for the most part. If you've been around in this industry, you can tell. That's pretty much it. So that kind of wraps this up. Let me just see if any other questions came in. But just remember, you can't, you can't make partners sitting on your ass. You got to get out there and do it. Whatever. With that Sloan thing, I just said, fuck it. I'm driving down there. It's an hour away. I'd like to meet these guys. Maybe we could partner up some way. Maybe we can't. But at the very worst case, you just go there and meet people. And I'm a pretty social guy. And, that's the thing. Some people are, afraid to get into those social situations. But that's why, hey, just DM people and then you can talk to people. But again, I guess that'll wrap this up. Nothing else here. If you like this I guess this is a podcast. You can retweet it. yeah, and maybe I'll do more. I don't know if I'm going to do them every week. I don't know if I'm going to do them once a month. Maybe I'll do writing, but maybe I'll do another one like this. So everybody, hope you have a great year.